All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back from Radio Row here in New Orleans, and we have some 49ers updates for you. You can see on the screen we're already prepped to discuss the most recent update that came out just before we were about to come on. I spoke to Mike Florio today, and he had some very interesting things to say, not only about Brock Purdy, but George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Kyle Juszczyk, and their future with the San Francisco 49ers. So we'll react to what he had to say. And I already saw a lot of the comments, and boy, we know what was going to happen. So we already got a ton of interesting feedback from that, and we'll go through all the other 49ers updates today, including what appeared to be Charvarius Ward kind of hinting at that he will most likely hit free agency and could very well sign with another team. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff before they kick me out of here. But you guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat. Smash that like button, and let's talk about it all right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Shout out to the Sourdough Squad. We are back, like we said, here in New Orleans as we inch closer to the Super Bowl. We don't really care too much for, but we are here to get into it. Have I got a beignet yet? I did get a beignet. They actually had it in the media workroom, but I don't think I should judge New Orleans beignets off of what's provided in the media workroom. So I do need to do it justice. Also need to do an SF Diners review as well. So I know they got the most popular spot in the world here. So we're going to go check out those beignets, absolutely, for sure. But for now, all I've had is the conference room beignets, which weren't bad. They weren't bad. But I would imagine the other ones are going to be better. So, again, shout out to all you guys for coming in. Appreciate you joining the stream. Smash that like button. Let's talk about this move right here that Ian Rappaport just announced. So, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're still bugging us. They're still poking us. And, obviously, initially it was all related to Robert Saleh. Was he going to be the head coach there? We didn't really know. And there was a lot of waiting and a lot of drama with them that we had to wait for. But as we saw, the 49ers were able to get the ultimate prize, which was signing Robert Saleh as their defensive coordinator. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars would like to interview the director of scouting and football operations, Josh Williams, for their open general manager position. And I'll tell you right away why I don't like this. Josh Williams has been in the 49ers organization for 14 years. That is a remarkable feat by anyone in any industry and in any career, let alone the NFL. So to be able to cut your teeth with the San Francisco 49ers as you first enter the league, and then within those 14 years, you rise through the ranks, becoming a pro scout, becoming a scouting director, and then you're running the whole thing. That's really respectable and remarkable. And I really hope, really hope that this is how the 49ers kind of counteract this. Now, I think having the Jags job would absolutely be a huge step up, you know. And I'm sure this is a goal that Josh Williams has always had since he got into this. And being able to be a general manager, I mean, you can't get any higher than that. But do we want to go be the general manager for the Jags? Seems kind of dysfunctional over there. I don't know. Anyways, the point being is my hope is that the 49ers obviously see this. I don't know if they can decline the request because I think they can only decline lateral moves. So if they were going to request to hire him for the same position, I think that's when the 49ers could decline it. But I think with where we currently stand, it would obviously be a promotion. So the 49ers, I think the only thing that they could do is give him a promotion and give him a raise. And so my thought is, well, Adam Peters left to be the general manager for the Washington Commanders. He was the assistant general manager. So I don't believe they really filled that. No, they did actually. Kind of they did. Now that I think about it. I'm now misspeaking on my previous video because I forgot to mention RJ Gillum and Tariq Ahmad, who do a phenomenal job. I think one's pro personnel, one's college personnel, and they kind of both operate the assistant general manager role. So I don't know if it would actually make sense for Josh Williams to get that. I don't know. We'll see. I spaced out on my last video, and I apologize to you. I apologize, Tariq. I apologize, RJ. I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh wait, maybe that becomes a little bit more challenging of making Josh Williams assistant GM because he would kind of. I don't know how that works. I don't know how the internal structure works. But maybe there's a way you can somehow get a title change and give him a raise. Why not? But the point being is, please yell at me in the chat. Direct all your anger into the chat, please. Thank you very much. But the point being is, keep him around. Do what you can to keep him. Don't let that guy get out of here. I really hope that's the case. So we'll see. But speaking of guys who might be getting out of here, I think it does look like that Charvarius Ward and his time with the San Francisco 49ers has come to an end. I think this isn't a surprise to anyone. I think we've all been anticipating this. I think we've all been expecting this, embracing this for this to happen. But the reason why it's being discussed today is because of a tweet that Charvarius Ward put out. He says, whatever team I'm on next year is going to get the best version of me. I'm hungry. So to me, and how I've interpreted this, I've seen some people like interpret this as like, oh, so does that mean you didn't give the 49ers your best? And I feel like that is not the right way to interpret what he said. The way that I'm interpreting it is that this is a guy who's heading into free agency. I think we already knew that the 49ers were likely not going to retain him in free agency because it was either Diamador Lenore or Charvarius that needed to get paid. The 49ers paid Diamador Lenore. They drafted Renardo Green in the second round. That tells us what the 49ers plans are. The 49ers plans are to most likely move on from Charvarius, and that was already decided, I think, before that last season even started. But I think the misinterpretation that some fans are having is that somehow Charvarius is admitting that he didn't give his best to the 49ers. I fully disagree with that. And I feel like that's a sad interpretation, especially considering the fact he returned to play after the tragedy that he went through. So to me, it's borderline disrespectful for people to say that. Like, just like really try, not everything's about you. You know what I mean? Like, so try to think about it in a sense of where he's at. Don't think about it like a fan. Don't think about it think about it like this is a man who's making a big decision for the rest of his life. And it likely is going to lead him away from the 49ers. And the way that I'm looking at it, interpreting it, is he's telling everyone and letting him know that regardless of what happened last year and maybe the perception and how he played, especially knowing the circumstances in which he was playing under, I think he's telling everyone, like, I'm still ready. I'm good to go. I'm locked in. So you need a cornerback, come get me. And that's really, I think, what he's saying. So I wish Charvarius Ward nothing but the best. I thought he's been a great 49er. He's been a phenomenal, like, I always love listening to Charvarius Ward talk because he is such a open book and he tells you how he feels and he tells you directly. And, you know, not everyone's like that. You know, a lot of people are media trained. They give you canned answers. I always appreciated the transparency that Charvarius provided. And I thought he was a hell of a player. I talked about it on the video that I made. I think he would be a top 5 paid cornerback if he was a free agent after last season. It's just how well he played. You son of a Fossey, you made me check my phone. Are you kidding me? You cannot hop into this chat and start dropping NBA trades. Can't do that. With the Luka LeBron trade. Listen, guys, we're here at the Super Bowl. Like, we're on Radio Row right now. You see all this? All these people are here to talk about the Super Bowl. All anyone is talking about is the Luka trade. That's the number one story. Luka trade and the Chiefs are cheaters. That's it. Those are the main talking points through the first couple days here. So don't be dropping fake trades here in the chat, because the Golden State Warriors, you know, Squirrel, have been linked to some big time names. So don't do that. But anyways, I do think we've probably seen the last of Charvarius Ward with the 49ers. But I mean, shout out to him. He's been fantastic. I want to talk about, you know, I think speaking of trades, right? Speaking of trades and blockbuster trades at that, the 49ers have obviously been linked to Myles Garrett in the sense of, you know, I spoke to Mike Florio today amongst many things. One of the things that he talked about is there's a framework for Myles Garrett to tell the Cleveland Browns, hey, I want to be traded to these 5 teams. Somehow figure out how to get a deal from these 5 teams, because you have to imagine that every team in the NFL would want a shot at Myles Garrett. You know, an elite, dominant edge player who still has some prime football left in him. And he talked about how, and Florio talked about how that could be a way of how you get that done. But while everyone's focused on Myles Garrett, and I do think that the 49ers will pick up the phone and they'll, of course, gauge interest and price, I think the name that we need to be talking about is Max Crosby, because Max Crosby he needs a new deal. And he doesn't have any guaranteed money left in the last 2 years of his deal. And the reason why you have Diamador Lenore tweeting at him, and you're hearing kind of, you have a new general manager, you have a new head coach, new ownership kind of in Tom Brady. They might be looking for a bit of a reset, right? So like start from fresh. And Max, I think has been a big time leader in that locker room, but I also think that can be a bit of a can become a challenge when you're going to reset the culture, because he's a part of the old culture. He's a part of the Pierce and those kinds of vibes. So I think that the name that could be interesting to follow. I'll say this. I'll say this. I won't say much, but I'll say this. A name I am hearing here in New Orleans is Max Crosby. That's all I'll say. So I think that, he's a little bit younger. I think he fit. I like his relentless motor. I think that's one of my favorite things about Max Crosby. So maybe that's a name that we pay attention to. If something were to happen, I'm not saying anything is. Let's keep it clear. I'm not saying anything will happen. So I think that's a name. But again, to my point, is you have someone else different running the show, who isn't running it like an emotional owner like Davis. So with Tom Brady kind of being the shot caller there, at least what it seems, I think that completely changes the dynamic, right? So although I would have 100% agreed with this any other year other than this year, I think there's a little bit different situation going on. So I think the fact that Brady is in the driver's seat right now changes that dynamic. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And it's also important to note the 49ers and Raiders aren't rivals anymore. They're not. I used to love dogging the Raiders. They're not even on my radar anymore. I don't even care, because they're not around and they're not any good, and we don't ever play them. So I don't care about the Raiders. I used to love talking trash to the Raiders. But if you are willing to bring on a hands-on owner like Tom Brady, I think what Mark is saying is he's saying that I'm willing to kind of relinquish some of the decision-making powers. So listen, the Raiders have had Max Crosby for how many years? And what have they won? They haven't won anything. So does it make sense to spend a ton on an edge, which again, it's an elite position, a premier position of the highest value in this league, and he is a Raider through and through. But if you have kind of some new brains in the mix, trying to shake things up and trying to reset the culture, reset the locker room, maybe Max Crosby is someone that would fit that mold. So we'll see how it goes. But there's a world that exists where maybe Max Crosby is cheaper cheaper in a trade opposed to Myles Garrett. So something to think about. You see the vibes, baby. You see the vibes. Shout out Don Burr. Almost had him this year, Donnie. You let the Commanders off the hook, Donnie. What are we doing, Donnie? Come on, Donnie. Donnie, what are we doing, Donnie? How did you get beat by the Commanders, Donnie? How did you get taken to the wood chipper by the Commanders, Donnie? Oh, Donnie. I know. I was talking to someone about this. Earlier. I was like, this would have been a completely different game if they were healthy on defense. Completely different. So, being a 49er fan and seeing the 49ers roster constantly impacted by injuries, I'll be the first to say that I think if the Detroit Lions defense was healthy, it would have been a completely different game. So I'm just messing with you, Donnie. But it's how I feel. I'm going to keep that same energy. Did I interview any celebrities? Did Florio. I talked to some old Niners yesterday. We talked to Charles O'Menahue. I talked to Oren Burks and Ty Davis Price. Ty Davis Price said something juicy, and I don't know if I want to say it because I'm not trying to cause any drama. So I think I'm going to keep that one to myself because, like I said, I just don't want to start any drama. But Ty said something a little juicy about the Niners, and I'll leave you with that cliffhanger. Who I talked to a couple people. I don't know why I'm blanking on all of them right now. I talked to DeAndre Hopkins. That was fire. Who else did I talk to? Why am I blanking? That's how you know I'm sleep deprived. Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman stopped by today. That was cool. Michael Pittman's super chill. I talked to some other people too. Sleep is for the weak. That's literally the vibe I'm on right now. So, what other things do we want to talk about? I'm curious. Oh, let's talk about what Florio said about Brock. So Florio today, we know where Florio stands, right? So I had the opportunity to talk to him about a lot of different things. And one of the things that we talked to him about was Brock. And I asked him what he would project. I asked him what he thought would happen and what he would project the contract to be. And he didn't even answer with that. He didn't answer what he think is going to happen or what he projects is going to happen. He just said what he would do. And he was like, I wouldn't pay Brock. I was like, Florio, you know exactly what you're doing. And he knew who he was talking to. All I was asking him was 49er questions. And it was one of the last questions I asked. So he knew what was coming. And I was asking him all about contract stuff. I was asking him contract stuff about Debo, about Juszczyk. It was all contract stuff. And so he knew what was coming. And I asked him, he said, I wouldn't pay him. I was like, phew. He was like, I'd make him play on the last year of his deal and make him earn the contract. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, the guy who got thrust in to the lineup as a rookie went undefeated through the regular season, through the playoffs, into the NFC Championship game, and we can't even say why they lost the NFC Championship game because Brock Purdy got hurt on the second drive of the game, like 6 plays in, and Brock is hurt and knocked out, and then makes it back to the UCL, which again, the UCL will be used against Brock in these negotiations, like Mike would. Mike would say he's had a UCL surgery. He's been hurt. So that's a ding in the contract negotiation box. And then what does Brock do? He comes back. He then leads the 49ers to the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy walked off the field in overtime with the lead in the Super Bowl, and he lost. I don't really know how you can hold, like, that's a crazy thing to say out loud. Brock Purdy walked off the field in the Super Bowl with the lead in overtime, and he lost the game. So you're going to make him earn it. And admittedly, Brock did not have as good of a year last year, and there's a lot of reasons why. One of the reasons that I think is personal to himself is that he was pressing. He was trying to not only just put the team on his back, but prove that he could do it with his legs. And he did. He did it in some games, and he really showed he could. But I think it was a combination of a ton of things. The defense took a step back. The offensive line declined. And you lost a ton of weapons. And you lost a ton of players. And coaching became predictable. Play calling became predictable. There's a lot of reasons why the 49ers only won 6 games last year. And even so, in winning 6 games, Brock had the lead in how many of them last year? At least 3 in division. So it just wasn't the 49ers' year. Is that all Brock's fault? No. Was Brock responsible? Of course he's responsible. He's a quarterback. That's how it works. That's why you get the big-time contracts. But we're not going to sit here and chalk it up to black and white. That's all Brock's fault, why they were 6-11. That's not true. That is a lie. That is a bold-faced lie. And anyone who says that is a bold-faced liar, or they just don't know football. So it's really that simple. And to then, that's where the part where I'm like, he's got to earn it. Like, so what happens if Josh Allen gets a $70+ million contract and more quarterbacks get paid and the bar keeps rising? And then let's say, okay, you make Brock Purdy earn it and Brock wins a Super Bowl, which again, 49ers would love, but the price of Brock rises again. So listen, I think there are ways to make this work. Everyone's focused on the APY. But really, I think what it comes down to is you just have to make it work, kick the cap hits towards the back of the contract so that you can still stay competitive for 2 to 3 years in building your roster. And by 2 to 3 years, I would say you would have enough conviction to extend Brock, and then you can keep doing that. You can, at least from my understanding of how contracts work, is that when the cap gets aggressive, you restructure and you push the cap back out and you just keep pushing. So I'm of the mindset that the 49ers can win and Brock can win and they can get it done. We'll see what happens. But obviously we'll have a lot to talk about with that. So I think what did we hear? One of the ESPN analysts projected, I think, 4 years, $200 million. I think it was 111 guaranteed. Honestly, I don't think that's a bad deal. I don't think it's a bad deal. I think it's a bad deal for Brock. I think it's a bad deal for his agent. I think it'd be a great deal for the 49ers. That would be a deal that I think everyone could get behind and be like, oh yeah, we didn't overpay. I think more than likely it will be maybe 4 years, 250, maybe 150 guaranteed might be kind of the sweet spot. But I agree. I think it has to. I think the baseline is Tua. Like, I think that's the floor. I think the floor is Tua because, again, the market's dictating and you're slotting. And I think you could, if you're the 49ers and his agent, again, I'm someone who only understands from the outside looking in that it seems like Tua might be a target. So we'll see. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But I do think what's interesting is Florio floated the potential idea that Debo goes to Seattle. I found that to be interesting. So he talked about there might be, but he's kind of leaning towards the idea of that Debo is probably not going to be here potentially. And the 49ers could try to get out of that deal. And would they try to offload him to Seattle in division? So I thought that was an interesting thought process that he had. He kind of talked about how it's most likely Kyle Juszczyk's. That was his last year with the team. So, and we also talked about George Kittle and a potential contract extension. And I think Florio would typically not extend a player where Kittle is in age and wear and tear. But basically what he was saying is he's clearly not slowing down, and he's the heart and soul of this team. So you extend guys like that. And, of course, Kittle, I think, is heading into this year in the last year of his deal with about a $20 million cap hit. So, again, extending him, you relieve more cap space this upcoming season, and you keep Kittle and make him probably a forever Niner. So, I mean, that's what I'm hopeful to see. I really hope that Kittle is here. I hope he's a forever Niner. I understand the Bill Walsh ideology of moving on from players before it's too late, and I totally understand why, and it makes sense to me. But I think there are too many positives right now that George is going to keep going, and not only that, he's such a key member of the 49ers, man. Like, you gotta keep that guy. You got to keep that guy. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, Florio didn't seem like, because he made it sound like that the 49ers might reapproach Kyle for a pay cut again. And he's like, man, you've already taken a pay cut once, and to have to do that again, it might just make sense to just move on. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. But that was just one of the things that he was talking about. So I think there's a lot of questions. Um, obviously a big part of the offseason is talking about who we're going to bring in, who we're going to sign, who we're going to draft. But before we do that, we got to figure out who we're going to retain, who's sticking around, who's getting extensions, who's not. So that's another aspect as well. The center that we need to bring in, I think, we have so many content creators, we have so many beat reporters, and we have so many just fans that have voices in our community. I'm not sure I have seen all facets of our community on the same page about a player, and that's Drew Dahlman. we all, like, it's so glaring. The center position is such a glaring position for everyone who watches 49ers football that it's like, just who's the best center in free agency, and that's our guy. And it happens to be Drew Dahlman. His dad is a former 49er. He went to Stanford, and he fits the scheme. He fits what the 49ers are running in terms of being a zone-style center. And I was a zone-style center, so I know exactly what that means. It means being your typically smaller frame, but you're way more explosive, and you're much faster. And getting to second level is in your DNA. Getting to linebackers, sealing off backside linebackers, it's in your DNA. Even getting to safety, it's in your DNA. You move. You're a mover. You can pull from the center position. So that's what Drew Dahlman is. He can move. And so I think that's why he's a honestly, like, if you get Drew Dahlman and you get kind of a bigger, honestly, you try to kind of replicate Dominic Mooney if you can. I think Gray Zabel fits that. I think if you could get Gray Zabel and plug him in at left guard, Drew Dahlman at center with Dominic Mooney, and maybe you have McKivitz, but you also draft a tackle in the third or fourth round that might have some high upside. I think that might be the way to go. And all of a sudden, boom, your offensive line's back. I really think Gray Zabel is a plug and play left guard, to the point where he might be first round material, which isn't good news for the 49ers. But we have to hope that the combine will rise others. But just everything that we heard from the Senior Bowl is basically every personnel person who was in attendance in Mobile was basically like, all right, who else was a riser outside of Gray Zabel? We all know Gray Zabel was a riser. Like, basically the notion coming out of Mobile was, all right, let's talk about someone else other than Gray Zabel, because I think everyone knows that Gray Zabel is just on a different level. So that will probably push him into the first round. So we'll see. Johnny says there's numerous O-line options in this draft. Absolutely. Johnny's 100% right. This is a great draft for second through fourth round interior offensive linemen. It's not a great draft for top end talent. It's not a great draft for cornerstone left tackles. It's actually a terrible draft for that. But it's a great draft for value. It's a great draft for, there's a lot of like Dominic Mooney's running around this draft. So I would agree with that. Which wide receiver in the Senior Bowl impressed me? I really like the Iowa State kids, Higgins and Noel. Um, those guys were solid. Jalen Royals, I believe is his name, the Utah State wide receiver, is very intriguing to me. Who else? I thought the Georgia wide receiver was a riser, but I don't know if I would draft him. I thought he was a guy that I had no idea who he was, and I thought he played pretty well. I don't know if I would draft him. Jack Betch, Betch. He's phenomenal. He's not your prototype at wide receiver. He's a throwback, but you talk about heart, you talk about effort, you talk about built different. Jack is a special player, and I saw it when I covered TCU versus Stanford. He was the number one player that stood out to me. And if you don't know, TCU has a prototype wide receiver in Savion Smith, I believe is his name. I believe it's Savion Smith, but he's prototype build, frame wise and speed, and it was Jack. Jack was the one who stood out to me, the low measurable guy. The slow guy was the better wide receiver to me. So, Jack's for real. Like, there's a lot of hype going on, but Jack is for real. What about Posick? Posick is intriguing, but he doesn't intrigue me as much as the others. He doesn't intrigue me as much. I don't think it's a strong safety. I don't think it's a strong center class. I think it's Dahlman and not a whole lot better, honestly. I've kind of looked over the list a couple times. Dahlman is really the only one who stands out to me. Posick he's serviceable, but that's what you give me, a serviceable center. I don't want a serviceable center. I want a difference maker at center. Safety wise, I haven't done a deep dive at Seth. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I know there's someone, but it is escaping me right now. It's gonna piss me off. There's a center or a safety that I'm thinking of, but my brain is fading. God, it's starting to piss me off now. All right, I can't let this stand. Oh, I'll figure it out later. Let's see. Thank you. That's the guy. The guy that I drafted in mock draft 1.0, Makuba from Texas. I like him because he's a speed demon. He's got speed, he's got ball skills, and he's got versatility. Makuba so far is the guy that I really like, but I will admit, guys, I'm on a mission to find the trenches. So a lot of my energy right now is on trying to watch as much O-line and D-line as I can. So I'm hopeful by the combine, like I'll have a wide range of watching all these guys. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyways, I'm excited to. Oh my god! Oh my god! Did anyone see that? What the fuck? Oh my gosh. I almost just got taken out by pigeons, y'all. Bro, they came low. They're like, we see the ginger. We see the ginger. Confirmed. The Pigeons are winning the Super Bowl. Absolutely. 100%. The Pigeons are winning the Super Bowl. Confirmed here. You saw it here first. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that at all. So, yeah, some pigeons almost just took my head off. So there you go. Sitting here on Radio Row in New Orleans. 49ers content creator gets taken out by rogue pigeons on YouTube Live. I think it's time. I think that's a good time. I think that's a good time to shut it down. I think that's a sign. I think that's a sign. Plus, I need to go. Media party tonight, so that's going to be fun. So we'll go do that, and then we'll be back. We'll be back to talk. Tomorrow's going to be a busy day here. So like the first 2 days, Monday is a setup day. Tuesday it starts to pick up. Wednesday, Thursday are going to be packed. It is going to be packed here. So a lot more stuff coming out. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you for following along. And we'll be out, but we'll be back tomorrow with more stuff, more content, more interviews, all that good stuff. Appreciate you guys. I'm out. Smash that like button. I'm out. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see you.